anything can be invented, let's do it. If a mountain can be climbed, let's do it. And that was sort of the attitude that led to the splitting of the atom, which you write about as a rape of matter.
It is a rape of matter, but of course, like, it's a rape that is going to be avenged. It is. I mean, you basically, again, I think the movement of Western knowledge is, as like Star Trek puts it, to boldly go where no man has gone before. And I would say no. We need to reinstitute taboos and limitations on knowledge until we know what to do. We need to have attitude of reverence toward nature, not an attitude of conquest. I'm not either pro or anti-nuclear. I'm pro, and I really take this from a Cherokee Appalachian philosopher, Mary Lou Awiakta, I'm pro-reverence. We need to understand we're dealing with forces of the sacred that need to be respected and dealt with. We need to be invited before we dare to bite on the, I think it was the snake inviting Eve. The snake was the guardian of wisdom, not, you know.
Now let's talk about this, because the snake is also reminiscent of one of the most ancient of female deities, the great dragon, from whom the universe was created in Mesopotamian myth.
Again, the dragon of chaos. And basically, yeah, I think what those myths are telling us is that, I think the Adam and Eve myth is all wrong. It wasn't God's injunction not to eat the apple, it was the snake's. We need to realize that we need to be invited by the cosmic forces of wisdom before we tread into forbidden zones. We need to keep things in balance. Yeah, so I would really like to reorder. I think but the thing about the bomb that's so interesting, though, is, again, it's extremely paradoxical, like any kind of sacred symbol. The bomb is about death, certainly, but if you look at popular culture, it's also about life and transformation. I mean, what the bomb did, we're told that it was the crowning achievement of Western knowledge and civilization. So what was the crowning achievement? The ultimate suicide machine. So therefore, it demands that we not only like wallow in fear, but that we begin to interrogate those Western myths of progress. Was this progress? Of rationalism. This is what science has wrought. Of individualism. And it forces us to do that. And I would hope, ultimately, act as a transformer, seeking to raise our psychic sensitivity and really demand what I would call a new world chaos.
Well, you also attack the notion of secrecy, and you draw a parallel between the secrecy that the government has kept for so long about the development of the bomb and the various tests that have been done on human beings to test radiation on them, and the way in which violence, incestual violence in families is kept secret.
I think incest is the primary paradigm of knowledge in this culture. That kind of invasion, betrayal of trust, secrecy. Again, boldly going where no man has gone before. If you look at incest survivors' accounts, you find the most frequent metaphor for their experience is being shattered by an atomic bomb. And yeah, the kind of secrecy, as well as this, the whole notion of the bomb, and we certainly saw this in Cold War propaganda, right up until this day, however, is that the bomb is going to protect us. But what's the bomb protecting us from? The bomb. So just as like the incestuous father is there supposedly to protect you when actually he's out there to violate you. And I think in those basic structures of our culture, that kind of doublethink, we see patterns that are reflected on a global scale.
And when we talk about light as being goodness, the image of the bomb is an incredible, brilliant flash, which is often compared in popular writings to some sort of divinity.
Absolutely. And in a way, the bomb, I'm not saying is a divinity, but the bomb is cosmic forces. It is elemental power. And what I would think of the bomb as, and this, you know, is really a quite outrageous thing, but I think of the bomb, even the ozone hole, nuclear waste, as aspects of what the ancients understood as the raging goddess, Kali, who is enraged. She has been disrespected or violated, so she shows her angry face. And she threatens to take us all back into the womb, which is the ultimate cauldron of chaos, to reform us anew. So the bomb, you see that kind of imagery going on as well.
So in other words, not only must we look into the darkness to discover the light, but we ought to look at the light to see how dark it is.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true. I hadn't thought of it that way.
A lot of your work also deals with interpersonal relationships, the way we conceive of our identities as they're shaped by these cultural forces.
Yeah. And that's what I think is so powerful about myth. I mean, because identity is never static. Identity is informed when you're 2 years old and then left. It's a constant dialogic process. You're constantly reforming your identity. And those of us who have been given, you know, I will think of women because I am one, who have been given so many negative messages by the culture about who we are, our body shape, you know, our mental capacities, our sexuality, whatever, can find extraordinary transformative power in these myths. In the face of the Gorgon, we can recognize that women, too, can develop, and I'm taking this from another philosopher, Emily Culpepper, sometimes need to develop a face that will repel men, a face of rage. For example, if we're being attacked in a rape kind of situation or whatever. In the crone, it can make a whole transformation as one approaches and realize, you know, in some ways you could look at the earth as undergoing sort of a crone phase. We're not going to have the benevolent earth mother anymore, you know, the constantly full breast ready for everyone to suck on. We're going into an age of scarcity. The world is going through a change of life right now. And I think that if women realize that we are in some way in tune with these cosmic forces, yeah, I think it can give you, empower you, and help you resist all the negative messages that the patriarchal culture is consistently forcing down our throats.
I suppose another one of these negative messages that is laid on women is the idea of gossip, that women's ways of knowing and thinking are gossipy or trivial. I'm thinking of the Jewish word bubamaisa, which means sort of the talk of old women. It's used as another word for nonsense.
The talk of old women in the myth brought this world into being. I mean, the green world we all love and adore. Well, we should, anyway. But yeah, gossip is a very interesting word. It actually came from two words, God and sibling. And it meant someone with whom you had a spiritual affinity, your very best friend, in whom there was this, you know, almost a divine bond. And when you gossip together, so I think of gossips as doing two things. I believe women must tell the truth about the harms that have been done to us, you know, be it incest. I think just as people who've been harmed by the government and radioactive experimentation or whatever need to speak the truth. In the truth, when you break that silence, that's when the healing begins, obviously. But gossiping is also about, going back to the powers of Spider Grandmother, it's about speaking the world into being. It is about, and we need to do that collectively. We need to do that communally. We need to do that with our other gossips. And men were gossips just as much as women were in the beginning. It's when it became associated really with negative factors that women's talk has always been put down, and that's a clue how important women's talk is.
You seem to be saying that at this particular point in history, the postmodern age, it's a time when we can recreate myths, that we can work consciously to build new myths. Can you tell me more about that process?
I think we have to realize that so much of our lives, our psyches, and the reality around us is shaped by myth and symbol. And the myth and symbol is in the, you know, the generation of myth and symbol through mass media, et cetera, is often in the hands of the elite. And I think we have to fight fire with fire in that way and take back, wrench back myth and symbolic power. So that is what I am suggesting that we do through our, in any way, in any aspect of our work. I do it through writing and teaching, obviously. But if we're raising children, if we are artists, if we're filmmakers, if we're even business people, you change that in your own life. I think that's kind of a chaotic strategy.
You've gone so far in this delightful wikidary of the English language to create new words, to redefine things. I noticed in your writing that you use the word snoolish or snool a lot.
That's actually a word Mary Daly made up to mean, because if you just say men all the time or males, I mean, none of us mean to imply, well, some people might, but I don't mean to imply that anybody's guilty by birth. I think that men can declare disloyalty to traditional masculinity, to the kind of rapist model of masculinity, the warhead model of masculinity that patriarchy promotes, just as whites can declare disloyalty to racism, etc. A snool is someone who declares loyalty to those values and who grovels in the typical sadomasochistic. He combines sadism and masochism within himself, as any hierarchy demands. You know, wherever you're beating somebody down, somebody else is beating you. So that's what a snool is. And yes, I believe that we need to use these words. English doesn't give us the words to adequately describe either the horrors that are taking place or the new reality we want to evoke. So yeah, we need to become word magicians and invent new words.
It's as if we don't even have to be limited by the vocabulary that we inherit.
No, absolutely not.
Or the grammar, I suppose.
Or the grammar, certainly the grammar. Yeah, taking us in a linear line, a line of domination, objectification. You get the point, you follow that line.
I mean, most people don't realize that they have the freedom to create new words if they want.
No, but some of the most creative people I know regularly create new words and incorporate them into their lives.
And yet creating new myths, I think, is a deeper matter. Most myths have such a force. It's almost as if they create us rather than we create them.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, creating a new myth is really quite a task. I mean, I think we retell the story. We take back storytelling power. So instead of telling the story of the atom bomb as Western man's ultimate conquest of nature and crowning achievement, we tell it as their supreme folly. When they thought they were controlling nature, what they were really doing was unleashing a force that was absolutely uncontrollable. It's there. So we tell the story differently. That's the way I think of as creating new myths.
And of course, what you're doing is looking at the old myths that have sort of been pushed underground and saying it's time to resurrect them.
It's time to resurrect them and realize that, again, these are not just simple stories and pictures from the past. The Egyptians had a myth of the great eye goddess. And she wasn't even attached to a body. She was just this eye in the sky, and what she symbolized was raging fury and blinding light. And you knew you had gone too far if she opened her eye and looked at you. I see the ozone hole as really the precisely same phenomenon that the ancient Egyptians were talking about. We have gone too far. We have pushed the limits, we have disrespected the elements and the other creatures on the planet, and nature will take care of us. And so I see that as really, so what I'd like to do is draw connections and get us to start thinking mythically about the phenomena that surround us right now.
It's as if the ancient powers are actually awakening in response to the imbalances.
Yes, they are. And you hear that, particularly in indigenous cultures. The grandmothers are awakening, the grandmothers are coming back. And sure, make up words. I call the ozone hole ozona.
Well, Jane Caputi, this has been a delightful time with you. I really appreciate your willingness to look at some of the most accepted aspects of our culture, things that people never question. You are looking at and saying, we have to turn this around. We have to see it differently. Your mind is deep and flexible and joyful. It's really a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much. A very much pleasure to be with you.
And thank you for being with us.